Welcome to Through a Therapist Eyes podcast.
Are we live? Are we going live?
We are, man. We are live in action.
All right. Well, I hope you had a good 4th of July. We've been a bit of a few days since we've recorded. I've missed it, man. We got to get back into swing. I feel sort of out of sorts.
Yeah, I know. I think we've recorded since the 4th, though, hadn't we?
I think we recorded right before it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, maybe we haven't since then.
Yeah, it has been a minute. Welcome to another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast. We are Chris Gazdick and Craig Graves, inviting you to see the world through the lens of a real mental health and substance abuse therapist. Being aware it's not delivery of therapy services in any way. Feedback and discussion through therapisteyes.com, podcast blog tab. And Craig, I want to say, I've been looking at the map and the numbers, and really, I've heard you say it several times. I don't think I've made a good enough point to say thank you to the listeners enough. In that, man, we're really. I was talking to you before the mics came on. I mean, it's kind of going global in a lot of ways, man. We've got a lot of new listeners across the globe, and that's
we
kind
do.
of neat.
We do. It is good to have new people.
Really appreciative of that.
Yeah, me too, man.
I'm so passionate about blowing up myths and misconceptions about mental health and substance abuse, and being able to talk to people in Bolivia and Lithuania and Honduras, and man, we even picked up my native land, Craig. I don't know if you know where my native land is.
I don't.
My heritage.
I have no idea.
Austria.
Really?
In the middle of Europe, man.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So we got to hit you with the fun fact, Craig. This is the human emotional experience. Let's figure this thing out together. What's your fun fact, man?
Is it my week?
It is like probably 2 or 3 in a row, man.
Dude, I was hoping that Austria thing was the fun fact there.
Well, it could be, I guess.
I think my heritage is mainly from England, if I'm not mistaken. My father did a genealogy search several years ago, and I think most of us are English in some form or fashion.
Right.
Fun fact,
so.
I don't know if I have a fun fact, man. It's been a crazy summer. I just got back from Chicago where my daughter won national championship in long weapons. So she is the bow staff gold medalist.
I was hoping you'd go there, man. I mean, that's huge. I saw your Facebook post there. You don't like to brag and whatever you said on there, but dude, man.
Yeah.
What is that? How did that happen?
She's been training for about 3 years now, and a year ago joined the competition team, and she's done really well. She got a silver medal in the kumite, which is sparring.
Kumite?
Yeah,
no.
Sparring. Yeah, so she won a bronze last year on the national level, but locally she's like 8-0. She's won 8 gold medals in 2 years, competing around the Southeast.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's doing really well, man.
That's neat.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
National
champion. Very
proud
man.
of her. National champion. Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. You say kumite, you know what that takes me back to? Is it Van Damme, Von Claude?
Yeah, I think Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yes.
Was in a movie.
Yeah.
And he was fighting in the kumite, which I think was a fight to the death. These kids don't fight to the death.
I hope not, man. I was like, you said kumite, and I just went immediately to that movie thinking, what kind of thing did you get into in Chicago?
Yeah,
man?
yeah. So it's interesting. I've been to Chicago twice. I went in June to train myself, and July for her competition. So martial arts has taken me to Chicago twice this summer.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't think about that until just now.
You didn't drive up, did you?
No.
Yeah.
No. Flew both
That's
times.
a long drive.
Yeah.
That's a long drive.
Yeah, Chicago's a great city, man. I'm going to go back. It's I don't know what stereotypes people may have about the city of Chicago with the crime rates and stuff like that, but it was a great city. Very clean, very nice. Right there on the Great Lakes, which looks like the ocean if you're standing on the beach or on the shore looking out at the lake. You can't see the other side.
Oh, wow, right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Chicago. I know we've got several listeners up there, I think. I read a book called Devil in the White City. You ever see that? Oh, man, it's an excellent book, and it's very historically cool because it's sound, and it's about a mass murder in the city. And they did it at the time of the World Fair. So the setting was in Chicago of the World Fair.
Was that a true story?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a Segway tour, and one of the facts the lady said that was the World's Fair in 1893
That's it.
introduced the world to the first serial killer.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that book, man.
Interesting.
It was a crazy good book, man.
Very interesting.
Crazy good book. Well, I'm just glad you didn't cover the other stuff that is a fun fact up in Chicago. We'll just leave that alone. You know, the other experience.
I'm not sure what you're talking about there, but perhaps.
My Pirates got hurt, man.
Oh, yeah, I did see the Cubs beat the Pirates.
Yeah, my Pirates got hurt.
Yeah, that's right.
Very sad.
That was awesome.
Mr. DT. I give a shout out to Mr. DT is what I'm calling him, because he's got a quote, man. And I thought this was an excellent quote. I thought, my gosh, that was the genesis of this particular show. Loneliness has become an epidemic. Oh, wow. That's pretty crazy. And pretty true.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy in today's day and age.
You wouldn't think it, but man, there's a lot of information and people that have thought out about this loneliness topic. So that's what we're covering today. Because of Mr. GT's comment, and I thought, that's something that really needs to be talked about, because man, there are a lot of people out there that are connecting in lots of new ways, but connecting in the new ways do seem to be lacking in some ways, in a personal touch, in a personal way. And consequently, I think people are really kind of finding themselves feeling like they're really the only ones out there. And that happens a lot with mental health. You feel like you're the only one dealing with depression, the only one dealing with, your mood's flowing all over the place, or whatever's kind of going on with your mental health. Craig, I don't know. Are you alone with your crazy in your head?
Am I alone with my crazy in my head?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying there.
We all feel alone, and I'm
we
calling
feel
you
alone?
crazy.
Because I'm crazy, do I feel like... No, I'm quite sure there's a lot of other crazy folks, too, and I'm not the only one.
We are definitely not alone. Definitely not alone. But it can feel that way. So listen, if you're checking this one out, there's an episode on Friendship 21 and a Lost Decade on episode 20 that I thought were really cool playoffs of this. Because, we'll go through talking a little bit about this factor, and I think if you're going to manage it, you really got to deal with it purposefully, and so that which centers around the idea of being being able to reach out to people. Seems simple, but definitely not easy, and a lot of people, I would say, don't know how, because I've heard people actually say that. Interesting thing that occurs to me as I'm talking about this. Heard someone say once, many years ago, that I originally kind of just poo-pooed it. Craig, what do you think the most painful thing is that a human being can experience? This lady asked us this one day, and people shot out all kinds of answers.
You mean like physically?
Emotionally.
Emotionally.
Yeah, physically we can go to medieval times and have all kinds of things, but
golly, I don't know what the worst would be. I mean, you got divorce,
right,
of yourself or your parents. You got death.
Right.
I guess brokenheartedness. I guess that would go along with divorce. I don't know, man. I mean, those seem like they're maybe equally. I mean, maybe different kinds of pain, but those are definitely tough emotional experiences to have to go through.
Absolutely, and hard to measure, but
betrayal.
Betrayal is a big one. She came out and made this statement that shocked me at first. I'm going to make it here, and I've thought a lot about it over the years. It really stuck with me. She said that the most painful thing that a human being emotionally can experience is being invisible. Right? Now, I see your facial expression, right? And it's kind of like, yeah, it's like, what? But if you think about that, she's worked with lots of people in trauma situations and in neglect situations and in that type of thing. And I tell you, there's a whole lot of truth to that. If you end up feeling invisible, like you're not even there to somebody, if somebody overlooks you so bad to deny your even existence, is kind of like God, how deep that pain kind of goes. And that has a lot to do with loneliness, I think. So depending upon the different reasons for your loneliness, people can get into a great deal of hurt here. Maybe in divorce, you start feeling really alone, you know. But being invisible, I'll remind you, remember we talked about the babies when we were talking about attachment disorder many moons ago?
Yeah.
These guys, little babies, had to feel like they were just barely even there. No human contact. That's a crazy thing to even imagine. You know? Does that sound like that could be more painful? You see how that can be?
I have a crazy expression because I'm trying to process that. I don't
Mhm.
know, man. I mean, at least if you're, I don't know. I think about maybe I don't know. I don't know how to articulate these thoughts I'm having about this about that statement.
It's a weird statement.
You know, I guess perhaps. But I mean, to lose somebody, whether it's death or in a relationship that you were in, those situations seem more painful to me than being invisible.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe
Well,
it's
it's everyone's experience. I mean,
yeah. Maybe that's where I was going. Maybe it's a individual type
I don't
thing.
think you and I probably even know what it would be like. You know, I mean, most people have somebody that cares for them, cares about them. Bruise your knee, mommy comes to you, daddy gives you a hug. You know, whatever. When you're really, well, you know who might know the depths of this to a certain extent. Craig, we had her on the show, Miss Stephanie Fast, for instance, right?
Definitely, she could
Right?
probably give us some insight on that.
Right? I mean, yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, man, my father worked for it's now Duke Energy, but Duke Power. When we moved around, I was the only child. We moved around quite a bit when I was young, and I was very, very shy as a young kid. And so, when you say feeling like you're invisible, that's what I think about. Because when I went to school in new places or whatever,
That's tough, yeah.
it took me a while to make friends and stuff like that, just because of my shyness. And to me, that wasn't as bad as some of the other experiences I've gone through later in life. And obviously, I'm not quite that shy anymore.
No,
But
that surprises me, actually.
But yeah. But feeling like I was invisible in that situation, wasn't as bad as my parents' divorce or my own divorce or other relationships that have been lost in my life. So no, but I mean Stephanie's experience would be completely different than mine from being invisible. I'm thinking anyway.
Well, you know what's funny? You just took me back to a moment, and maybe I got a little bit of a glimpse of it of this feeling in this sense. I mean, being lonely. So I'll tell this quick little story that might give a little context, and it was just a moment, maybe a 10-minute time period, and it was a horrible day. It was a horrible experience, and it was similar to that, Craig. I mean, you're young and you're trying to figure out how to relate to people and how to talk to people, and I had a similar type thing. It was the first day of junior high school where everyone had gone to regular public school and whatever that was at Philadelphia where I went, and I went to Catholic school, until I switched over. I think it was like the 7th grade, maybe the 8th grade. And I'll never forget the day where I went there for the first time and I didn't know a single soul. Kind of recollected some faces from years ago in baseball and whatever, but I didn't know anybody. And they shuffled you off the bus and they shuffled you down the hill and you had to congregate on the blacktop basketball court before they'd let you in to the school. And I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to do. And I felt like panicked. It was an awful feeling. And I just sat down on the hill by myself. Teacher comes and shoos me over. And I'm like, I don't know where to go. What am I supposed to do, And so I just literally walked around the group, the crowd. Because, everyone's like, getting back to school. They all know each other and they're in their groups talking or whatever. And I literally just walked around through the mass of kids that were on the blacktop. Almost panicked about, like, what am I supposed to do? I couldn't even sit down. So that was a little glimpse. It was a very tough day.
Mm.
Those are hard moments. Those are hard moments when you feel, really lonely. Yeah, without company cut off from others, not frequented by human beings, sad from being alone, or produce a feeling of bleakness or desolation. I mean, that's the way we define it. But it's interesting to me of a lot of the things we talk about. I mentioned the tale of two tapes, right? The whole biological component of what we're experiencing with mental health, and then the social and emotional component, how those really play off each other. And I think there's a lot of dynamic overview for all of mental health in that. But what's funny about loneliness? I don't think that there's much biological aspect to it.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't, and maybe I just don't understand that. I mean, depression, we know the dopamine levels and, serotonin, a lot of times norepinephrine with anxiety, you got this brain stuff going on. But these descriptions and even insecurities that we have, these are feeling emotion matter. Loneliness, as painful as it can be, and as involved as it is with people, we don't diagnose this. We don't diagnose loneliness, but it's a major factor into the way that we relate to other people, and creates a lot into how we feel. So it's just interesting to me to a certain extent that it's not a diagnosis. I don't know that it's much of a biological thing, but you can feel lonely in a room full of people in a church, right?
Yeah.
Or as I'm walking around that blacktop, you can experience this.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. And the pain that comes along with it is even in a workspace where many people might be around you. It's a feeling, it's a sense, which consequently we could do a lot about it. Lots of people are feeling a lot of hurt by being alone after life events, being widowed or being a widower. The loss of a child can just wreck you with that. Death, certainly. The movement to a new town. Hopefully, a little bit as this show goes along, we can kind of talk about how to manage it so that people don't struggle with that quite so much. That's a little bit of a goal, I guess, I might lay out for us.
Okay, good. That's a good thing.
How do we manage it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about social media? We've talked a lot about that on our show. I thought Forbes had an interesting article on social media and the millennials and kind of what they're experiencing from it. What do you think happens with the younger generation and the way that they're interacting with each other through, the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Snapchats and all of that, fear of missing out, FOMO. We've talked about these types of things lately. How do you think that impacts loneliness? Do you think they feel more or less than we did?
Probably, I would probably say just my initial thoughts are maybe more lonely, First of all, I don't think interacting over a computer is the same thing as interacting in person, right? You're not going to develop friendships and have experiences like you would if you're face to face or playing outside or doing something like that. And some of the things I think about that we've talked about on social media shows before with like with Dr. Weigel and such is, I kind of lost my train of thought just a little bit there, but we're
gonna pull you together, man.
Well, it's your anxiety about what people are saying about you on social media. That's not really. I don't think that's the same as an in-person thing, right? Because that's for the world to see,
right?
And it's not going away,
right?
And there's just a different dynamic in communicating and relating on social media versus actually having a conversation with somebody or being face to face with them.
I think there's definitely a factor there. I do, in the sense, tell you another really quick cool story that I think applies there. That, it's just these little moments that you recall, and I've actually recalled this more than once. We're recording 2 shows tonight. We'll have somebody with us next show, and we started a little bit of a tradition I did whenever somebody's sharing personally and whatnot. I like to give them a high five. Believe it or not, I didn't put that together, but I think there's a reason for that. I might be putting it together really in this moment, but I remember as a young kid, I got a job, and I was pretty young. I was 16, working with my older brother, and of course the older brother always knocks you down. Love your brother, but you have. He did, man. It's tough to be a younger brother. And he had this job first, and all of his buddies were there working, and in comes little brother, hopping and skipping, and yeah, I just didn't feel part of the group. They were all older than me. They were all working. Very first night I worked there, man, I was slow and I had to bust my whole section, and they were all hightailing it out of there. I ended up walking home by myself. I'm like, geez, man, talk about loneliness, man. It was tough, And no one helped me that day. But I'll never forget a moment, I don't know, months later or weeks later, however long it was. There was this one dude, he was he was a really cool kid looking back on it. He was one of them. And I was walking through, and I must have been particularly stressed that day because it was busy. And he just looked up at me, caught eye contact with him, and he popped his hands up in the air, and he just gave me this coolest high five. And it was like, boom, in that little moment, I was like, whoa, dude, that was cool. I've never told that story before, ever.
Now you're telling it to the world.
Yeah, tell it to the world. It's the first time I ever told that story. No lie. But that high five, that physical touch, that connection that he just shot at me, maybe it was just that day, I don't know. But in what you're talking about with, people connecting exclusively, online or whatnot, because of maybe even their anxieties to get out and be around people, they miss that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting that. That physical touch, that hug from somebody that you like, that high five meant a lot to me that day. Actually, it really did, and it carried through in my memory. So I don't know how you get that over a computer.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I guess some people do. It'd be interesting to hear if some of the listeners have stories they could share with us on making real connections. Because I guess you do hear about people meeting on dating sites and chatting over chat and getting to know each other, and those things evolving into real relationships. You also hear about people doing that and getting murdered, and becoming the Craigslist victim or whatever.
There is that.
But I mean, I just don't think that interacting on social media is the same as being an in-person.
I feel like that is a meet online, but then you got to go greet.
Yeah, and I think dating sites are like that. But you do hear about folks meeting and chatting and
well, I've learned from a lot of the kids that I work with in my office, Craig, and I did not buy it at all at first, but they're on the games and relating to people and they, don't get me wrong, you can develop full-blown relationships online with people and whatnot and never have met them.
Yeah.
That happens. And so I don't want to say that that's bad at all or give any impression of that, because particularly, people that have agoraphobia, they cannot get out of the house. Their anxiety is wrecking them literally, and they have a very hard time getting literally out of the house to the mailbox. Well, if you're reaching out online, listen, folks, that's a great idea. That is fantastic, because you got to connect in any way that you can. But I think the warning that I would put out there with that is don't allow yourself to be limited by that, because you'll get stuck in that little sort of cyclical trap that keeps you stuck there. As a matter of fact, I wonder if we have more agoraphobia statistically, because this is the therapist just wondering.
What is
out
agoraphobia?
Loud.
Tell us what that is.
Oh, yeah, sure. Agoraphobia is the fear of getting outside of your home.
Really?
You get kind of trapped in.
That's a disorder?
Well, it's yeah. I mean, it's a component of anxiety sometimes.
Wow.
People get just super anxious when they're around people or around things or situations, and
wow,
yeah, they literally get kind of trapped.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I was just thinking out loud there for a minute. Like it's curious and interesting to me if if we have an increased amount of that or not. I'd love some researcher to look into that, because if you allow yourself to kind of get stuck into that, you kind of stay stuck there. If I can't talk to anyone on a computer or whatever, I kind of got to, so I'll get out and talk to the neighbor at least. Well, now you just maybe pop up and talk to somebody online instead, in lieu of that, and It's only half complete. I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder if that actually, I never thought of that way before in that way, but they had some statistics here that I thought were interesting. The folks over at Kaiser Family Foundation did some numbers and looked at more than 2 out of 10 adults in the United States, 22, and in the United Kingdom, 23% say they always or often feel lonely. And
wait, 23% of people in the UK?
23% of the people in the UK, 22 in the United States.
22% of people say they feel lonely?
Always or often, actually. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Figures, they're alarming statistics, right? It's just,
do we know why? Does the article say that?
Well, it's been a while since I read this article, so I'm not really sure. But I mean, I think that's what we're going to be talking about. What we are talking about. No, I guess is the answer. I'd have to read this article closer. But listen to this. So Cigna did some surveys, and they revealed that nearly half of Americans. Wait a minute. Findings add a wave of research showing maybe this is even more recently. Half of Americans always or sometimes feel alone or left out. And then fully 54% said they always or sometimes feel that no one else knows them well. So it's like, when I go back to DT and he says, loneliness has become an epidemic. I mean, it does seem to be an increase of this stuff going on, and that people are experiencing that. I mean, maybe it's not too much of a surprise since the 70s or 80s or whatnot, divorce rates have kind of gone high, although the millennials have brought the divorce rates down.
Yeah, we've talked about that before too.
At least
I've shared some posts on that maybe.
Yeah, it was neat.
I'm not sure if we've talked about it here on the show. But let me ask you this, man. Can you be around people? And I think I know the answer to this, but can you be around people or even married to someone and still feel lonely?
I'd say yeah. And some of that, if you're shutting down and putting walls up, yeah. What was one of the things I read there? That no one knows them well. What is it?
Well, that's what made me.
54% said they always or sometimes feel that no one knows them well.
You saying that kind of made me think that potentially you could be around people a lot and still be lonely because you really don't know anybody and nobody really knows you.
You got to tell somebody something about you for them to know it. So yeah, the guardedness that we have. I think you're definitely onto that something there.
Interesting.
You got to be purposeful about making friendships. We talked about one time in episode whatever. Actually, it was episode 21. That requires some that requires some tolerance of criticism. That requires some vulnerability. That requires you to put yourself out there, and that's hard to do. People might not want to do that. So then, consequently, they're not going to know you. You don't tell them; they can't know. If you tell them, they may be mean. It's like honestly, man, I think, Craig, that a lot of times in a lot of ways, we what do we say? Grown ass adults, we can act like kids. Is that you don't you feel sometimes like you're on the playground again?
Oh yeah,
in moments like
yeah, it's like yeah.
We have those feelings that can come back up at us, and hit us at any point. And matter of fact, I almost kind of cringe on Survivor. I like that show. We like the reality TV a little bit. Sorry to admit that, but it's true. I'm one of those people. Although there's a lot of us, Craig. I know you're not one of them. But they do the schoolyard pick, for a competition or whatever.
Oh, yeah. It's on Survivor?
Yeah.
I've seen Survivor before.
Yeah, it's almost like, oh, no, not the schoolyard pick.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that last guy again.
I don't want to be the last guy.
And don't you know that everybody's been that last guy? I don't know who can't relate to that.
Maybe not everybody has.
Well, they can't be, because somebody's got to always be the first guy picked.
Yeah, but if you're playing kickball and you're the stud, you're always going to get picked first, man.
But that guy, that so-called stud, can identify with being the last guy picked. How that happens, I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't get it. But it does. Check out on the show notes. We got a really cool survey that, man, I'm not a big managed care fan, to be honest. But Cigna did a good job, man. It was pretty neat. Cigna.com, trying to give some resources out to people. And I think I remember looking at it. I think I went through this. It's like a 10, 15 questionnaire. I asked Craig, guys, before the mics came on, if he wanted to take a loneliness questionnaire, and he said no. Be honest.
I said not online. I mean, I might take it later.
Ah, yeah. And we don't have time to do it, but it's a neat thing that a tool that they looked like they created that I wanted to put it on the show notes as I was looking around, because it kind of actually gives you an idea of, you know, how this may be actually going on for you and you not really realize it to a certain extent.
So what do the results look like? Are you lonely? Yes or no? Are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, kind of one of those types of things. But I'll go through a few of them. How often do you feel that you lack companionship? Never, rarely, sometimes, always. And then it goes on to the next one. How often do you feel that you have a lot in common with the people around you? Rarely, never, sometimes, always. How often do you feel close to people? I'll click never. How often do you feel left out? I'll click always. And so it, you know, I'm not going to go all the way through it, but that gives you an idea of some of the questions they ask. It's almost like different forms. You know, when you think of loneliness, what is it? You know, it's like different forms or sort of types of this thing. And that might be kind of what you were kind of getting at before, when you're kind of like, I don't know what, you know, how difficult is this or whatever. There's different ways that it kind of comes out and is experienced. And this survey kind of goes through, I think it'll help people, you know, just to kind of identify a little bit how much it's going on.
Well, that's interesting when you talk about forms. So can you have strong relationships in one area, but then not another area, and then feel lonely because of the lack there?
I think so. Say that again.
Can you have strong relationships in one area, like with your children, for example?
Right, in areas of your life, right?
Yeah, but then be single and feel lonely without having a mate or friends. You know, I don't have any good friends. I have great friends. I'm just saying. But, you know.
Thank you, Craig.
I didn't say you were one of them.
Oh, well.
But seriously, I mean, you know, I'm divorced. I've been single for 6 months. You know, I feel like I have strong relationships with my kids, man, and when they're with me, I'm great. But you know, sometimes it'd be nice to have a female companion to talk to or whatever. You know? So that's the question. Can you have strong friendships, strong relationships with your family or your children, and still feel lonely in that category, or vice versa? You know, can you have a strong relationship with your wife and feel lonely because you don't have any good buddies to hang out with?
I think so. You know, they Psychology Today identified several types. They say a new situation loneliness, or I'm different kind of loneliness, or no sweetheart kind of loneliness, or no animal. I thought that was interesting.
No animal?
No animal type of loneliness. No time for me type of loneliness. Untrustworthy friends, and then they also add quiet presence.
So no time for me loneliness? What does that mean?
You know what? I hear abandonment in that. I'm not important. You don't care about me. Abandonment fears, I think, play out directly into that kind of type. If that's the way Psychology Today is looking at it.
Got it.
But yeah, no, Craig. Yeah, I think you're right. By the way, I think you advertise single across the world. You're gonna have emails from Europe flooding in.
The Ukraine.
Yeah, man.
I get a Russian wife.
Hey, that'd be awesome. Actually, I hope August listening sometime. He's a Russian friend of mine from years ago. He's a cool dude. I learned a lot about Russia from talking to him. He was a foreign exchange student.
I'll have a Russian bride next week, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. But I think that's true. You know, there's different areas of our life that could probably be attacked by feeling, what was the old definition, you know, about being cut off. You know, whenever you start to feel cut off, that can hurt. That can hurt. And you're right. I think that when you go through a divorce, particularly because that's the closest kind of relationship you're going to have, it's super hard, super emotional and super painful. Matter of fact, I thought we need to do a show on divorce recovery, at some point.
It'd be good.
Yeah.
It'd be a good topic.
Because that's, but then you can have a real strong relationship with your kids and have good, good extended family relationships. So it's, hadn't planned this, but maybe it's a good point to make and part of transitioning us even a little bit to, to talking about, how do you manage this? If you have a lacking area in life, where you're really feeling kind of down and bad and you've been kind of cut off more, even particularly if you can't control it or whatever, it just happens to you, you can lean on and rely on those other areas of your life that are stronger.
Yes, indeed.
That's a strategy.
Right, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Dan Miller talks about that in, as life in general. So he breaks life down into 7 categories: personal development, career, physical fitness, spiritual walk, all that stuff. So the point is if you're strong in all 7 areas, if you lose your job or something like that, you still got 6 places to draw from. So yeah, I hear what you're saying there.
Yeah, you never want to leave yourself vulnerable, and vulnerable is not really the right word, but leave yourself open to relying on only one. Put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, if all your eggs are in one basket.
Yeah.
If I'm a career guy and I lose my job, I'm screwed.
Right.
But if I got strong relationships and I'm in good shape and I have good finances, then losing a job is not that big of a deal.
Right. God, self, spouse, family, friends.
Yeah.
Work, that whole priority list we've talked about a little while ago.
Right.
I mean, you want to have all of them.
Yeah. I think a lot of folks do, though. They put all their eggs in one basket. When they lose something, it's devastating.
Probably
they're
true.
A workaholic or a workout junkie, and they break a leg or an ankle, and they're done.
Or I'm just going to focus on my friends and go hang out with my friendships and not worry about my family so much.
Yeah.
Teenagers,
right? Or my health or whatever.
Right. Or I'm just going to go and be in my marriage and it's me and them for life, and that's how many people get married and lose their friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not good.
And they lose their spouse for whatever reason, and
then of course that's
when loneliness comes in.
Absolutely. So
big time.
The whole point is here, right? You want to rely on all of them. You have multiple sources and multiple people in life, but when one's really struggling, it has strong potential to hit you, and that's what that's what we want to try to manage. How do we make sense out of loneliness and kind of managing it? What says you, Craig? What do you do, man? Oh wait, before I do, we jumped around. Let me go back. Because I added, actually, when I was looking at this types that Psychology Today was talking about, right? New situation, loneliness. You scoffed at the no animal loneliness, man. That's a real thing, man. Well, you're not an animal person? Come on, man. You love that dog. Right?
I'm not even going to joke about the dog.
I'm going to make friends with your dog someday, man.
Yeah, so my dog does not like my kid's dog, and it's okay with me, but it doesn't like men in general, right? Women come into our house and the dog's fine. Dude comes in, she goes nuts.
So my dog, just me.
My dog hates Chris. Hates him. When he comes in, I have to lock her in the other room. She freaks out. No, I just think a lot of folks, man, pets are like family members,
Oh yeah.
And I've never really had a relationship with an animal like that. So whenever people talk about that, I just don't get it. So that's the reason I kind of scoffed at your comment there.
No time for me, untrustworthy friends, quiet presence, loneliness. I added loneliness when tragedy strikes. Oh, they missed that one. When tragedy goes on of some sort, hopefully we have a commitment. We just got to get a schedule to get Aaron back on, kind of get a good update for him. Maybe we'll talk about that then. You really feel like you're going through something alone when tragedy of some sort, or when you're widowed or widower. That's not just the death, but that's like, you really just, when something happens big in your life, an accident or a major diagnosis, medical diagnosis, you really feel like instantly alone. And that's a bummer. Bankruptcy, Another example of like, when you really feel like you're going through something alone. So some tragedy or some big event happens. And I'll tell you another one I think they missed is diagnostic stuff with mental health. Like when you have depression or you have anxiety and that type of thing, you feel like you're alone.
Yeah.
Bullying.
I think anytime you have some kind of significant event like that, there's probably an initial feeling of loneliness, right? I'm the only person on the planet who's going through this right now.
And on it goes.
And that's not the case. I mean, there's, 1 billion people now on the planet, on Earth,
Yeah.
So you're not the only one. I think people need to keep that in mind. But I can see that initial feeling when you get whatever news would be one of extreme loneliness.
I don't know how accurate this is, but on the website that Cigna has their survey, check this out, Craig. Just more of like, is this really? So nearly 50% of all Americans reported sometimes or always feeling alone. I guess that was the same as the other article, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that what I said from the other thing?
You said.
Yeah. This is saying nearly 50% of Americans reported.
That's a little higher than the first one. I think you
always
said 20 to 30% or something like that.
So only 1 in 4 Americans rarely or never feel as though there are people who understand them. This is interesting. This is Generation Z. Is that what's under millennials, or is that what they've been called now?
Up and comers or whatever.
Oh man, age 18 to 22. I wonder what we were going to call them. Who determines that anyway, man?
I don't know, man.
There's got to be some guy in some silver tower somewhere that comes up. They got to do better than letters.
The guy behind the curtain.
Yeah, man. Listen, Generation X, that's our thing. I think that's right.
Yeah.
That's a cool letter use because of X. But you can't have Y. What does that mean?
It comes after X.
Well, but no, like, and now they've gone from millennials to Z.
I guess so.
Generation Z.
I don't know. What's next?
If I were them, I would feel majorly zipped.
Generation AA. Is that next?
That would be Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know, man. When you do that, I would feel gypped if I'm in Generation Z. That's not right.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
18 to 22 is the loneliest generation and claims to be in worse health than people older than them. Now, I don't know what they base that on. I really don't. But if that's the case, dang, we got to do something about that.
So 18 to 22 is the loneliest generation?
That's what they're reporting. And that cohort claims to be in actual worse health than people older than them.
Well, I think they're the only the first generation that has a life expectancy that's shorter than their parents.
Nah, really?
You've never heard that before?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's because of the foods we're eating and the lifestyle choices we're making. It's interesting that you say that with the social media and gaming and the things we've talked about on the show, that generation is the loneliest and the most unhealthy.
I don't know if I don't know if I buy that, but I mean, I don't know how you measure that. I don't know how you come across those numbers. I mean, a lot of them probably are really survey-based, survey-based research.
Of course it is, yeah.
Yeah, where did I see that? In my show notes. Here it is. Talking about loneliness not being really a medical condition, but they cited that it's as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Well, how?
Statistically.
I mean, how?
The health impacts.
Suicide?
All of the health impacts. I guess you take statistics and you layer everything up and whatnot. But they...
So loneliness is not a medical condition, but it's 15 times as deadly as, or it's as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes per day.
That's what a Forbes article claimed.
It
struck me enough to where
article. That's interesting, but
I would say this. We know that sadness and depression and your emotions act as a major drain on your body. We know that. And yes, suicide being a major factor.
Yeah.
I would imagine suicide rates, when you're really feeling lonely, skyrocket. And
maybe it's lifestyle choices and choices. From being, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if I like this. What do you mean by lifestyle choices? That's curious.
I like the foods we eat, or not exercising, or
Oh, well,
taking
yeah.
risks, doing stupid stuff. I don't know.
Well, I think they're talking about an emotional factor. Well, but they are layering it out to cigarettes, I guess.
Yeah.
I see your point. How do you manage loneliness? What do you do to deal with this? How do you manage this when you're coming across some point in life where you're feeling that way? Let's pivot and really hit that, right? You had a concerned look on your face when you're messing with the computer. You made me nervous. Everything all right over there?
Yeah, we're looking good. How do you manage loneliness? Are you asking me that question, or is that just leading into the next topic?
I'm asking you, and that's leading to the next topic.
I think that kind of what we talked about earlier, I would nurture and try to take care of the relationships that I did have if it were just one area that was lacking, right? And so, like we said, if we had a need in one area, you could fall back and lean on the other. So if my relationship with my children is very strong, but with friends or love interests or family, it wasn't good, then lean on that relationship with those children, or vice versa. Solidify the relationships that you do have. If I don't have anybody, then perhaps I go out like you talked about on the other episode 21,
right?
And try to make some friends, man. Get in social circles. Try to meet some people somehow. There's plenty of ways to do that these days.
Mm-hmm.
There's meetups, there's dating sites, there's different things you can do these days to meet people. And so I would say if you don't have any kind of relationships, then go establish some.
You know what's funny, Craig? As I'm listening to you, I don't know nothing you said made me think this, but as I'm listening to you talk about going out and doing that, do you know the number one reason people go seek prostitution?
Because they're lonely?
Just to have someone to talk to. Right? It's literally like I've had people that I've worked with that have been kind of caught in those rings and whatnot. And they'll tell me like, yeah, man, this is just guy will come in and he won't want anything sexual at all.
Yeah.
Like the whole time. I'm like, really? This is years ago. And she's like, yeah, they want to talk.
That's interesting because I was as you said that, it made me think about Tiger Woods.
Oh yeah.
So when Tiger Woods went through that big sex scandal thing he was going through, some of those ladies said that Tiger just wanted to watch a movie. As crazy as that sounds,
Tell us more about that. I didn't read those stories or hear that.
Yeah, so
piece.
When that whole thing happened with
I
Tiger
remember,
Woods, he had like 18 or 20 or some god awful number of women that he was running around with, and a couple of them I think were stars in the porn industry or whatever. And some of these women came out and said that it wasn't about sex, that Tiger wanted to watch a movie or just hang out. It wasn't necessarily just a sex thing. And that made me think when you said that perhaps Tiger Woods was just lonely.
Now there's sex addiction is probably a part of that. There's that many women and the
possibly so
the drug things that kind of go along with that. But what do I know? I have no idea. I'm so far from afar. So, but that would fit. I mean, your supposition there would certainly fit because loneliness probably is absolutely a part of it. And I'll tell you this. I said it a little bit ago. I added to the list of types of loneliness. I mean, when you're going through something like addiction, you even if it's sex addiction, yeah, you can feel lonely. But boy, how about that? Like if our supposition is right there, Tiger Woods, he's kind of could meet. He can meet and go wherever he wants to go.
Yeah.
And I guarantee he probably feels intense loneliness and whatnot because I tell you what, fame. You don't realize that, but fame really sets you aside and apart. It's almost like you can't connect.
Yeah, Sports Illustrated, I think it was, did an article on Tiger. And really, as I think about that article now, based on the conversation that we just had, I think a lot of that stuff was probably loneliness for him. You know, he had his father he was very, very close to.
Right.
But growing up, he didn't have any close friends, you know, because he was always playing golf with his dad and his buddies. You know, he wasn't close to his other siblings. You know, his father had children with another woman, and he really wasn't close with those people.
Right.
Or with those guys. And then, you know, he lost his father, and that was his closest.
That hit him.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reality, and you know.
And here's one of the richest guys in the world, the most popular athlete on the planet.
Right, particularly back then.
Hands down. Oh, yeah.
Particularly back then when he was on top of the world. But, you know, fame, yeah, you look at people and you get envious of them and whatnot. And I'm not going to purport, because I'm certainly not famous, but I'm not going to purport that I can understand that. But you know, in looking at it and hearing people talk about it, you feel all alone because you kind of can't relate to people when you're famous and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, you know, politicians and stuff, I mean, you get into some tough emotional realities there.
Yeah.
I'd love to have Tiger on the show and talk about it.
Yeah, I'm sure he's listening.
Maybe
Tiger,
that'll
we
happen
want you to
someday,
come on
man.
the show, man.
Contact at throughatherapist'seyes.com. Don't forget the S after therapists.
Yeah, you're going to get an email from Tiger Woods tomorrow.
Managing loneliness, Forbes points out, eating well, exercising, getting out, sleep, treat yourself, reach out, cut toxic people. I hadn't read this for a little while. I did the show prep long ago. I was just making fun of that term, toxic people. What does that mean, man? Everybody talks about toxicity now.
Negative people who bring you down, you know.
Yeah.
People who don't support your ideas. And
you know, it's interesting to say that people can really drain you in a really unhealthy relationship. I was just talking to about that with somebody today, a young person, and they have somebody that's really kind of draining them.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
You have to be careful about that.
You know, man, I listen to tons of podcasts, and I read, you know how I am. I read tons of books.
Right.
Man, I'm all about it. And everybody that I listen to says that you are the equivalent of the 5 people who are closest to you.
Yep.
So if you want to be a hero, quit hanging out with zeros.
Right. Did you come up with that line, or did you hear that line?
I think that was mine.
Dude, man, tap him up over there. That's awesome. Dude, we got to write down that quote. It needs to get into the book. I was brainstorming what my thoughts were, just my pure thoughts. Kind of thinking back on what I talk about in therapy sessions with people, how we go about dealing with this. And I came up with what I think are some pretty cool things that I've kind of worked with people on. First of all, it's interesting, you know, in a therapy experience, you get the whole metaphor of tearing off the bandage, right? And you can heal, so to speak. I think toleration of vulnerability, developing the ability to tolerate vulnerability as a big factor for managing and dealing with loneliness.
To tolerate vulnerability. What do you mean by that?
If you can't be vulnerable and share yourself with others and be able to be trusting of others, it's another big factor, trust. How are you going to deal with vulnerability? Yeah, like Forbes list, you know, you got to eat well, cut difficult people out of your life, you know, treat yourself, take care of yourself, sleep, take care of your body, get outside, reach out. But when you're doing that, if you cannot tolerate being vulnerable, you will feel alone. I think there's a direct correlation there. So
that goes back to what you said a minute ago about people not really knowing, feeling like anybody really knows them.
Yeah.
Right?
You got to tell them.
You got to be vulnerable, man.
And how many people like being vulnerable?
Nobody likes it, I would think.
It's hard.
But you got to do it.
If you don't want to feel lonely.
Yeah.
So let's hold ourselves accountable there and develop some ability to, you know, tear it open, let people know. People that you trust, not just anybody. You got to choose wisely who you trust to, by the way, obviously. But you got to tear it off and tell people. Be vulnerable. Making friendships. We did a whole show on that. I really, 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 really want people to listen to Friendship episode 21 if you listen to this one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Right? They connect together directly.
That's a good one. If you haven't heard that one, Chris talks about a thing that I've never heard anybody else talk about. He purposely went out to make some friends. And I've never heard anybody do that before.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I need some friends. I'm going to go make some friends.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Got shot down a few times and it ended up being my good buddy.
Yeah.
The electrician out there, Mr. Joe, I mean, he was one of those. And I did. I told the story, asked his permission to tell the story, by the way, and we met in Cub Scouts, and it worked out. He's a good buddy of mine now.
That's cool.
But a lot of people will sit there and tell me, quote unquote, Chris, I don't know how to make friends. How do you do that? I mean, it's, again, Craig, us grown adults can be back on the kiddo playground in an instant emotionally, man.
Yeah, we're all kids at heart, man.
I mean, it's true. What did I say? Had people challenge themselves in therapy sessions to just target specific people. Yeah. I was brainstorming and show prepping this, and I talked about that on the therapy show there, or the friendship show rather. Purposefully target people to make deeper and closer friendships, to improve them by revealing stuff. As a general rule, I think it's a really true statement. When you want to improve friendships or make friendships and whatnot, when you share, okay, it tends to give others emotional permission to share back with you. I think that's a direct reality.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. Like, when you share what's going on with you, what your thoughts are, what your heart is, it gives them emotional permission to share back with you. So if you want somebody to share something with you, share with them.
Right.
Reaching out to others. Actually, I agreed with Forbes, I guess. I didn't realize that till right now. Here's a big one with managing loneliness: combat negative self-talk.
We have to do a show on self-talk.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because, I mean, man, some of the things we say to ourselves is ugly, nasty, mean, pitted with hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to connect with somebody if you're tearing the crap out of yourself in your own head.
Yeah, and people, man, it's like that goes back to that whole negative thinking thought process. I told you not long ago I went through that coaching stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so me and a guy that I know that I've been friends with for a long time, he's younger than me, are going through some of that stuff together. And so he's telling me, he's got this thing going on at work, and he's telling me what his boss has told him and everything, but then what he's telling himself is totally different. Yeah. I'm like, look, dude, wait a minute. Here's what the guy said. He said this, he said that, he said this, he said that. But here's what you're telling yourself.
And you saw that in him?
Yeah, those two don't line up, man. What the boss is saying is good stuff. What you're telling yourself is not good stuff.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. You did him a solid then to point that out, because those discrepancies, I mean, Craig, what's funny about that? I do that in therapy all the time. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah.
We're reframing, and it's not blowing smoke at ourselves, but it's being real.
Dude, it's the fact. It was the facts.
Yes.
Here's what the boss said.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. You're doing great. But here's what you're telling yourself.
That's awesome, man. That is fantastic. Combat negative self-talk is going to consequently combat loneliness. Realize when a biological condition might be at play. I'm big on the tale of two tapes, man. There's a biological reality. And when you're not really aware that your body is going through something, then you're going to feel alone because of it. Because there's something wrong, but you don't know what's going on wrong. And what I'm talking about is like depression. Your body is depressed, and that's the reason why. Because your body is doing that physically. Well, and then you're going to have a hard time with loneliness. Life changes when you're going, teenagers, hormones changing. In older life, hormones are changing again, right? Like, teenagers feel like they're the only person with their voice creaking out.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you, it's funny, a young guy I know was all freaked out about, getting hair on his arms and legs and stuff, right? He felt like he was, I don't want that to happen, Dad, Ah. So just understand your body and realize when you really might have a biological condition. Prioritizing self. Let me see. With a full range of connection to others. We talked about that already. God, self, spouse, kids, family, friends, then work. Boy, I want to spend a half an hour on this, Craig. You ready? You just put your watch at me. I got another half hour on this one, man. You ready?
Yeah.
Work the problem with others. okay, i.e., a professional, or included with others, a third party. Don't let things sit. Let it get somebody else involved when something's kind of going on. Don't be alone with it in your own head, or even alone with it with just you and another person. Being a marital therapist is such an honor to be that objective third party. That defeats the idea of isolation and loneliness. We got to get out of here, huh? We got to get out of here, I think, right?
We're running up on time, yes.
Closing thoughts, comments. What you thinking?
I don't have anything to add. I don't have anything to add at all. I think
we do a good job.
I think we are.
Do a good job with loneliness?
I think so.
Maybe we should pick a piece of this out. Well, I think you said one, yeah. Negative self-talk.
Yeah. Self-talk's definitely a topic we should explore in more depth.
I'm kind of excited about...
You start believing the things you tell yourself.
Oh, boy.
I'm not enough. I'm inadequate. I'm not this or not that. You start believing that stuff.
How about this? I am all alone.
And our subconscious mind, I'm all alone,
Boy.
And our subconscious mind gets programmed
to believe
what you tell it. And I believe that you can reverse the negativity by telling yourself positive things.
There is science behind that.
Oh, yeah, there definitely is.
Cognitive therapy in total is just that.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this next show we're going to record in a minute on service animals, man.
Yes, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an interesting show. We did not talk about our sponsor.
Oh, Metro. Yeah. Tell us about Mr. Realty guy
Hanks
there.
Realty Group.
Yeah.
Right? HanksRealtyGroup.com. Matthew Hanks, local realtor in our area, good friend of mine and Chris's. If you have any real estate needs in the local area, Matthew Hanks is the guy. MatthewHanksGroup.com.
Matthew at HanksRealtyGroup.com.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
His email.
Yes.
So let's get us out of here, man. Let's get ready to record
guys,
again.
We appreciate you listening. Like we said earlier on the show, man, we're passionate about getting this word out there. Tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best way to spread any product, and we are a product. So we'd love for you to tell your friends. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and give us a rating on your podcast platform. You can stream the show directly from our website, throughwaytherapistdies.com. We have individual entries for each show. We're also on just about every major podcast platform. What else, Chris? Links to our social media.
Facebook,
Instagram. They're on the website.
Twitter?
We're not tweeting, man. We don't.
How about YouTube?
YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel. Yes. We keep talking about this. I'm going to quit saying it, but we're exploring video. Hopefully you're going to have it soon. But you can get the audio. You can listen to the show out there on the audio. And we're doing shorts now, too. We're cutting pieces out that we think would be helpful and publishing those on Monday mornings. A lot of feedback we've gotten says that we're too long. People don't have time to listen to an hour show. So we're trying to take out some helpful sound bites and put those out there for people who are on the go.
Craig, I missed doing this with you. Missed a week or two, so it's good to be back. Love hanging out with you. Let's greet these people a good farewell, and we'll see them next week.
Fun stuff, man.